Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for French Rarebit, and with me today to take a journey to France is my good friend, the Toonie tenor, Manny Cruz. Say bonjour.
Bonjour, Monsieur Anthony. Dans ton cœur dort une claire de lune, oh, du clair de... Oh, my French is terrible. I've sung in French before. And not just, da 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 da, the Latin Quarter, or, Louette, j'entends Louette. Singers have to learn the three main languages, Italian, German, and French. Italian, similar to Spanish, not too bad. German has some similarities to English. French, as I always like to say, OISEAUX. You look at it and you want to say oiseux. It's pronounced oiseau, and that means birds in French. You have 15 letters, you pronounce 2.
Exactly right. And speaking of pronouncing, I'm going to pronounce some initial details on this short. As mentioned, it's French Rarebit, released on the 30th of June 1951. It had a Blue Ribbon reissue sometime in 1960. It's the 624th in the series, and it's directed by Bob McKimson. You can find this on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 2 DVD set, though there is a HD version out there, and I hope that gets put onto disc at some point, because we all know how fickle streaming services are. Hint, hint, right? In case you haven't seen this one, look, it's very straightforward. I mean, pretty much if you've seen Hillbilly Hair, you've seen this one. But in case you haven't even seen that one, Bugs ends up in France, he's wandering down the street, and two chefs fight over wanting to cook him. And of course, Bugs messes with them. So straightforward, but I assure you guys, this one is a classic, and for good reason. It is fantastic. Let's go through the trivia. First up, the title is based off a British dish called Welsh Rarebit. It's a hot cheese sauce over toasted bread. Yummy. And now I'm recording this before I've eaten lunch, so now I'm extra hungry, of course. Yum, yum, yum. Now, some of this info comes from Devin Baxter's Patreon/blog, so definitely subscribe to him to get a lot more info about this short in terms of the in-depth stuff like recording dates and that sort of thing. But essentially, as per the animated draft, the working title was, and let's see if I say this right, Hassan Pfeffered Hair. I'm glad they didn't go with that. I can understand if they used as a temp title, but that would have been pretty bad if it became the actual title. The chef Francois' line to Louis,
"You are expecting maybe Humphrey Bogart?"
derives from Minerva Pius's Mrs. Pansy Nussbaum. If I'm completely butchering these names, but it's from the Fred Allen's radio program, a show which, as Devin points out, McKimson mined a lot of material in his Warner Brothers cartoons. So thanks, Devin. And voice work, what's interesting is, you got Mel Blanc does the voice of Bugs, obviously. He also does Francois, but for Louis, Ted Pierce, the writer, does his voice. And Ted Pierce is no stranger to voice acting Warner's cartoons. I know he did one of the last few Beaky Buzzard shorts where he plays the upper crust bird, and much earlier in the decade he's done quite a few other voices, and he was even the silhouette in the Tex Avery cartoon. So yeah, so this is not new to him. But wow. Now, you were saying to me, Manny, before we recorded this, you forgot how funny that was.
I remember the beginning, the setup, and I remember the ending when you had Louis and Francois being in the oven. But man, there's just some really, really neat animation in this one. And as we were talking about it prior to the recording, your favorite scene, and you were asking me, Manny, your favorite scene, is it going to be my favorite scene? And then you mentioned it, and then I quoted, I forgot what movie it is, was, "Did we just become best friends?" But yeah, we were both in agreement when Monsieur Lepin, so I think that's Mr. Rabbit, if I said it correctly, probably didn't, is going to whip up his patented, amazing Louisiana Back Bay Bayou Bordelaise a la Antoine.
Louisiana Back Bay Bayou Bunny Bordelais, a la Antoine.
A little tear runs down my face because I'm thinking it's going to be a real drag in a few years that Rod Scribner is no longer going to be working in Warner Brothers cartoons, because this was just and I even wrote a French term, it was a tour de force of Rod Scribner animation.
Oh, exactly. And in this one, it seems like McKimson sort of let Scribner off the leash in this, because it seemed a lot more in the vein of Bob Clampett than, I guess, the McKimson of this period of time where Scribner briefly joined his unit, and it's fantastic. For me, the runner-up is, when Bugs is kneading the dough, so to speak. That's pretty...
Oh, that's a great scene.
Exactly, but man, when the chefs are fighting, I just had to freeze frame that and look at it and go, wow. That is incredible. I could not believe what I was seeing here. And, they even at this period of time, the Scribbler was doing some mighty fine work. But I will point out with this short that both this short and Hillbilly Hare share the same writer, so Ted Pierce. It's essentially a reworking of the core idea of Hillbilly Hare, where there are two villains of sorts, but they are so stupid that Bugs not only deals with them easily himself, but for the longest time, the two villains are too stupid to realize that they are being messed with. So you got the dance and Hillbilly Hare, and of course the whole recipe bit in this cartoon. But I don't recall Ted Pierce and Mick Kimpson doing another short after this with a similar idea. I think it's just these two, isn't it?
No, that's all the time I had. These are the only two. I mean, after watching this one and noticing that they're French cousins, Louis and Francois, and I even noticed they even have the same hair color. They both have black hair and redhead. Until you brought that up, it's like, yeah, this is pretty much just another crack at Hillbilly Hare, but instead of the Appalachian Mountains of the United States, in Gay Paris and all that jazz. And it's still really, really, really funny the way that they attempted of it. And speaking of United States, Appalachia, we're actually going to go to my neck of the woods in my part of the United States. I laughed out loud when Bugs was talking about the famous Louisiana Back Bay Bayou Bordelaise de Antoine, and then the Antoine de New Orleans. And he says, I ain't talking about the Antoine of Flatbush. And I cracked up. And in case I explained to Anthony, to the listeners, Flatbush is a neighborhood of Brooklyn, one of the 5 boroughs of New York City. So a nice New York City reference for our dear old New York Rabbit over here,
It's Flatbush, not to be confused with Nutbush, the Tina Turner song as well,
Ooh, very nice. Music
Yes.
trivia from you? All right, I'm leaving.
That's right. That's it. I'm out of here, and I'll put a car sound effect in there. But when I watch some of these Looney Tunes as an adult, there are some things that stick out to me where it's like, yeah, if you really think about certain things, it doesn't really make sense. Now, does that ruin the enjoyment of the cartoon? Of course not. But I guess it's one of the horrors of becoming an adult, where logic, sinks in sometimes. So first of all, it says there's carrots from the USA, but France grows a lot of carrots. So why would they need to import them in? Was there a carrot shortage? I don't know. But anyway, but also, why wouldn't the chefs have their own rabbits ready for cooking? Don't they have deals with butchers and suppliers and that sort of stuff? But anyway, whatever. I hope somebody got fired for that. Anyway, we get the drill there, but whatever. That's overthinking the short. This one is hilarious, and we've already pointed out the wonderful animation, but the gag work, the entire extended scene where Bugs is teaching the chef, of course, what the recipe is by using the chef who's too stupid to realize is being used in the recipe. We got things like the whole spicy bit, where of course we've learned that apparently there's mule radish, not just horseradish. I wonder what that tastes like.
Yeah, I don't want to find out.
I like my spicy food, but this seems a bit overkill. And we get the whole classic Looney Tunes trope: hold the onions. Okay, we'll skip the onions. And, of course, the Scribner animation mixed in. That's part of the recipe, I guess. And then, of course, we get the wonderful topper where the other chef comes in. He's upset. He's like, nope, I have to learn this too. And, yep, he gets the same treatment. And at the end, they sing Alouette. I mean, that whole sequence, while maybe not as classic as the square dance sequence in Hillbilly Hare, I don't care what anyone says, it's up there for me. It is so close.
It's really, really fun. Like, rewatching it again, because, again, I remember just the initial thing, them getting into the conflict in general. And, yeah, it really is a French version of Hillbilly Hare, because I said in a review for that one, like, Hillbilly Hare is a classic, but it kind of starts off a little slow. And the same thing with this one, where it's like, Bugs is going around in his horrible French. I mean, mine is pretty bad, but he's got me beat. I mean, yeah, I'm going to hang out, I'm going to see the Monsieurs and the Mademoiselles, or the street. I'm going to try to pronounce it correctly in French, but it's Rue de la Paix, which translates to Peace Street. Rue means street in French, and Paix is peace. But he says, was it Rue de la Pikes? And I love that weird pronunciation of Peace Street in French. It takes a while to get to the, kind of like me when my commentaries takes a while, but to getting to the meat and potatoes, or I guess the rabbit and potatoes of this cartoon, the craziness of the recipe. And just, I'm thinking now, with how popular Hot Ones has become on YouTube, the series where people eat hot wings and they torture themselves. But you saw a nice early version of it when Bugs is just shoving all those ingredients down the chef's mouth and then seeing like the little steam coming out of his mouth and eyes and all that. And I thought it was really funny.
Yes, exactly. I mean, wow. Yeah, even the stuff before the wonderful bit at the end is still pretty great. As you mentioned, all those touches of him mispronouncing names and that sort of stuff. But there's also music. And of course, I mean, I have to point out, first of all, my favorite bit, but music-wise, it stuck out really well, is, of course, when Bugs turns the chef into a rabbit. What do we hear?
Open wide.
Oh, you must have been a beautiful baby. Na-na. Oh, I never get sick of that cue. I don't care where they use it, and the fact that he puts a glove and sugar cubes to make a wabbit. He takes his mustache and he cuts like one of the pieces of his mustache into whiskers, and then magically the whiskers disappear for a few seconds, but then they reappear. But man, I never get sick of that music cue.
Oh, yes, exactly. But what other songs do we hear? I'm going to make an assumption that some of them are French-themed.
Well, yeah, you're right. I was mentioning before P Street, Rue de la Paix. That is featured at the end of the cartoon on the Rue de la Paix, a little while after You Must Have Been a Beautiful Baby. You also hear Stranger in Paris, which is another composition by Al Dubin and Harry Warren, who their music has appeared in tons of Warner Brothers cartoons. Hey, go check out some of the earlier Merry Melodies. I talk about those dudes there. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You hear Hinky Dinky Parlez-vous as well. Of course, you got to hear Alouette, Gentil Alouette. One of the chefs does sing it when he captures, I think it was Francois, when he captures Bugs in his pot. And the cartoon itself starts with the Latin Quarter, which was another Al Dubin and Harry Warren composition. So yeah, they got two songs of theirs featured in this particular cartoon. There's no Gabriel Fauré and there's no Poulenc and Debussy. I'm just thinking of French composers. Bizet in this cartoon, but it would have been nice. But I mean, still though, it's a nice little French touch to this cartoon. And speaking of French touch, one thing that I really got a kick of that I never noticed before are some of the expressions that were coming out of the mouths of the chefs. It kind of reminds me of like the gibberish Spanish that Mel Blanc does in the Speedy Gonzales cartoons, which I understand, but I did pick up on a few of the French phrases. So Francois yells out, nom de plume. And I'm like, pen name? Pseudonym? So yeah, nom de plume means name of pen. So yeah, that's a fake name that a writer uses. Like J.K. Rowling, she uses a pen name for some of her books, something like that. So yes, that's that's an expression in French now. Apparently, I think Louis says "Oui de Noël" or "Nuit de Noël." That's what I heard. "Oui" means yes in French. Noel, if I'm not mistaken, means Christmas. And I think he says Nuit de Noël, which means Christmas night. So again, makes a ton of sense. And he says, viva a la carte. And I'm like, a la carte, what are we at a restaurant? And another interjection that he says, he goes, eau de Cologne. And that is pretty much all means water. So he's pretty much saying water from Cologne, part of France, or as we know as men, the cologne that we wear, hopefully on a daily basis, not, once every, I don't know, every 5 years or something. But just like those gibberish, not gibberish because they're actual French words they were saying, but I just like how he's yelling out pen name and Christmas night and cologne.
Yeah, no, exactly.
One other interjection that was actually in English. I'm pretty sure that one of the chefs, I think it was, because I'm remembering who's who, I think Louis is the one with the red hair, that he says, sad sack. That's not French. But yeah, I believe he was referencing Sad Sack, who was a popular comic strip and comic book character created during that time around World War II. He's a very clumsy, inexperienced private in the army. And in case you were curious, well, now Sad Sack means someone who just doesn't know what they're doing. They're an inept, a soldier, a regular person. And it is a euphemistic shortening of the military phrase, sad sack of... I know how to say the word in French, but just think of, but the not nice way of saying it.
Of course. So in terms of rating, this one gets a 9 out of 10 for me. And some might say, oh, you're throwing out all these 8s and 9s and 10s, surely not everything can be great. Well, at this point in time, just about everything is. So, no, this gets 9 out of 10. It's maybe not as memorable as Hillbilly Hair, but dang it, it's one of McKimson's best shorts of this particular year and this part of the decade too. What would you rate it?
Ooh, this is tough. I was going to initially give it an 8.5. It's great, a little bit of a slow start, but once it gets rolling, like the dough with the pin, it gets going. And we just did Chow Hound, which I gave a 9.5, and that one's a absolute masterpiece. This one's great as well. Really enjoyable. Why not? I will say un, deux, trois, quatre, cinq, nuit. No, I forgot how to say 9 in French. Just 9 out of 10. There you go. I'll give it a 9. Why not? Might as well, reach a consensus with you. Ms. I was going to say mon chéri, but that means like my love. Well,
Well,
don't tell your wife.
mm, well, I'm flattered, but spoken for.
I'm flattered, maybe a little curious, but the answer is no. And there's my Simpsons reference.
So you were rating it 8.5, 9?
Give it a 9. Why not?
Yeah,
It is.
why
It
not?
is a really funny cartoon. Like this is definitely the period where I would say, arguably Jones the most, but all three of the directors were really hitting their hot streaks, and it'll last a little bit longer once we get into the 50s.
Exactly right. So that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, au revoir.
Au revoir, mes amis, and hey, make sure you go over to Flatbush to see Antoine.
Vive Antoine! Alouette, Jacques Alouette, Alouette, Jacques Personally, I prefer hamburger.